howdy, and welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio.
Yeah, you and I on the phone yesterday or the day before was talking about. I brought up how my grandkids asked about it, so I got it out for them when they was over for the holidays. You still got that Bigfoot hair, Grandpa? Like, oh, so I busted it out for them, and yeah, they was getting it out and touching it and rubbing it on their face.
Jeez Louise, that looks like it came out their head or something. That's some long hair there.
It came in two separate wads, a giant wad and a smaller wad, and they were probably about, I don't know, maybe 10 feet apart. And then there was Bigfoot tracks. We even casted one of the tracks leading up to them. Actually, it was a track that went past them. I mean, the hill was in the direction of the hair where we cast it, so it had already walked past. We don't know what's going on, if it was a fight or a mating thing, but so far 3 universities and a museum have not been able to identify what it is. And it used to smell nasty for a couple of months. It was just nasty, and the smell's gone away. And I know people have like, oh, you got to keep it in paper. You got to do this. If you keep it in a plastic bag, it'll dissolve. Well, it's been in this same bag for 9 years now.
Yeah,
and it hasn't faded. But I don't mind manhandling this because I've already got some. I already got 400 strands of stuff that's never touched human hands that I know of.
Yeah.
You know, we collected it without touching it and have just kept it separated. But this wad of hair, yeah, we rub on our face and
whenever you want to try to get some skunky smell.
I don't know. I have so much of it. I've been thinking about maybe going out and like making a small braid and maybe tying a feather to it and gifting it in Bigfoot areas or something. I don't know. I don't know if it was used for mating purposes or fighting purposes, it might create a reaction. I mean, I know I can't smell nothing on there, but I'll bet you a bloodhound, Bigfoot, or a bear would probably be able to know what the scent on that is.
Yeah. They'd be like, oh, this smells like this hair was rubbed on some humans' faces. Ooh, yeah, humans.
It's some weird stuff. I totally thought that within a week or two someone would be able to tell me what it is, but nobody knows. Nobody knows. If they know, they don't care to say.
That's a good sign.
Mm-hmm. The bottoms of these logs, these didn't grow here. These were relocated and placed. But we call these teepee-style territorial structures. This is one of my favorite structures on our map overlay project. It's just so delicately balanced. There's one at Bear Wallow that's bigger than this, that's balanced the same way. But look at that, there's no ropes or anything holding it together. There's a branch with it's a hook in it.
Heard that vocalization behind us again, Brody. I don't know if you viewers can see it, but I thought it was 16.5 inches, but it looks more like a 17-inch footprint that we just found within about 100 yards of a bedding spot, a territorial structure, and a spring. That's definitely a larger footprint than any one of us have. I just think it's insane crazy if someone's running around back here barefoot. So we might be on the Squatches again today. Just a few hundred yards after we found the footprints, we found this big old tuft of hair. We don't know what it is, if it's moose or bear or whatever, but we're gonna collect it. We found some more. Well, we might as well collect them both. Yeah, we found a 17-inch footprint. If that happens to be Bigfoot, maybe it's a 17-incher. Maybe he's an old one with gray running through him. I don't know. The alpha male up here is pretty damn raunchy. Look, there's more hair.
It's gray too.
There's so much gray through it. That's weird. I've never seen a moose with gray hair, and it just doesn't ever seem that texture. And this time of year, moose have short hair. That moose that we just saw had short hair.
Holy hell. It looked like something scalped.
Well, we're not sure if this is Bigfoot hair, if we can find an expert to analyze it for us. We've been seeing the juveniles tracks up here the last 3 weeks, 11 inches long. We think we just found the female. Last week we found the male 17 inches, and I believe this is the female. This is a good 15-inch footprint. You can really see the big toe on the one side. We've been looking for the mamas up here because I'm pretty sure the 17 inches the male, and so we've been wondering where she's at, but yeah, we found a pretty decent one. And there's another one further up that Brody found. After finding the hair, we measured last night. I didn't bring my tape down. All of our backpacking and cleaning up our backpacking camp and stuff. This is a 15-inch long, and at the widest it's about 6 inches long. Footprint, we believe it's the female. The 11-inch footprint led to it. So we casted this last night, and we're back down here this morning collecting it.
Well, in case anybody hasn't figured it out yet, we're back, and we're here with Kelly Shaw.
Hey, it's great to be on World Bigfoot TV, radio, media. What do you guys call yourselves now?
Well, I'm rebranding everything as World Bigfoot Central because I have a whole bunch of playlists, and depending on what I'm doing on the show, depends on which playlist the video shows up on. So it could be if they're just me talking to a guest on Duke Chat. If it's the regular program, that's, World Bigfoot Radio. World Bigfoot TV is mostly like field research video and stuff like that. But if I got a guest on that's going to predominantly show buttloads of field research video, then it's probably on World Bigfoot TV. So you can kind of differentiate if this is a show that you want to listen to while you're driving around, Duke Chat stuff. And then as it gradiates up toward World Bigfoot TV, it's more and more, hey, why is they playing music in the background? Because they're showing video. It's not a radio show. So anyway, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. And it's great to have you back again. We were just talking here before we started actually rolling everything about how, the paranormal stuff pops up when you're doing Bigfoot research. And you just recently turned out a video where you got some really cool game cam pics like you always do. And one of them, this deer is like making himself star and 6-7 pictures in there. And one of them, he's down in the lower left-hand corner looking the same direction as the game cam. And he kind of cranes his head forward and looks up in this next picture. And it looks like he's looking at a white orb down there. And of course, game cams being stationary and taking the same view in every single picture, I actually went through all of them. And there's no white orb in any of the rest of them. So really cool capture there, Kelly.
Yeah, well, I can only show what's on the cameras and don't know where that came from. I don't know if orbs and Bigfoot are related. I just know that I've captured them before in Bigfoot sighting hotspots where the Wasatch Mountains, the Bear River Range mountains meet. For some reason, the game cameras in those Bigfoot sighting hotspots, I've captured orbs on them several times. On the Monte Cristo Mountain, an orb the size of a softball that was flying around in front of that camera for about 10 seconds. Can't explain it, have not been able to replicate it. It drove me crazy. I even brought that camera home and went down into the basement and spent hours trying different things to get, the replicate that orb. And I'm in the basement, and so I'm getting in nooks and crannies and grabbing spider webs and all kinds of stuff. And one thing that I've noticed on my cameras is that IR trigger light that goes off when the camera starts at night, especially, it just makes a strand of web glow. And so when you got an orb flying around and you've got a video before the orb and after the orb, and there's no orbs in those and there's no strand of web, you're just like, what created that?
Yeah, the one with the deer I really like because you could scrub back and forth between the previous and
Uh,
then the later picture, which were obviously taken a few seconds apart. And in the one, there's no orb, and the deer's in the same position. And the second one, there's the orb, and the deer's looking at it. That's the best part, because otherwise it'd be like, well, maybe it's a little fragment of water got on the lens or something, or some other weird anomaly or anything. But you got the deer right there pointing it out because he's looking at it. That buck is looking at that thing.
Yeah, and that's in a recent Bigfoot sighting place. What got me in there at that particular time to service those game cameras is um, some guys got a hold of me that had a Bigfoot sighting 2 weeks before, and I'm just barely finding out about it. And it was 2 weeks previous, so I head right down, and I'm like, I got game cameras in the area. I'm checking them out, and that's what was on that game camera that was in the area was that orb. And I was really excited about where their Bigfoot sighting was. They just gave a generality, and then I'm like, they said it was near Mink Creek, and I'm like, which Mink Creek? There's two of them in Idaho, and I'm thinking it's the one out by Pocatello where the famous video that was all over the news several years ago. So I'm thinking it's that place, and they're like, no, the other one, and I'm like, oh, the other one. The other one is where there's some aggressive Bigfoot sightings. There's some mountaintop springs there, and it's on a place called Midnight Mountain. And I know people get upset that I give away the location, but I mean, this is a gigantic mountain, and but there's several aggressive Bigfoot sightings. There was a cop that he was off duty, and he did not come forward with this report until he retired because he didn't want it to affect his career. Unfortunately, that's how it was back then. I think people are a lot more accepting of these reports than they used to be. But he got stuck back there in his small two-wheel drive truck, and started digging out. And he decided, I'm just gonna camp in the cab of my truck, and I'll get out of the snow in the morning. And he's laying there trying to sleep, and all of a sudden he notices a humanoid sneaking up to his vehicle. And as it got closer, and he had a really good moon going on, and you know how it is when you got snow on the ground, it really lights stuff up.
Yep.
And he realized it was a giant hairy creature, a Bigfoot. And it slips up to next to his truck, and it comes right up to the place where he kept relieving himself, and it sniffed the snow where this guy kept getting out of his truck to pee during the night. It sniffed, and then it peed right where that guy had been peed over it. So that to me is aggressive. That's like a territorial display, peeing on someone else's pee in the animal world. And then
Yeah, no, I'm
and
the
then
boss around here. You don't get to scent mark this area. This is my area.
and then the Bigfoot snuck off. I mean, it took slow steps until it was gone. And this guy had his sidearm sitting on him next to him in the vehicle, and he was afraid to reach out to it when it was sneaking up to his vehicle and all of that was going on. It didn't want him to see him move at all. So he just sat there frozen. But after it left, he stayed the rest of the night with his sidearm on his chest like this. Okay, now fast forward 10 years, same exact spots. These two guys, they're out going hunting, and they have their hunting dogs, and it just started raining cats and dogs. And they're like, we just need to find the most convenient place to camp. And they pull off on this random dirt road, the same one the cop was on, and they pull back in there. And the first available place on this dirt road they can pull off their truck, that's where they pull off to camp. And they start a fire and they put a tarp under their truck. They just decided, we're going to sleep under the truck, use that for cover. And they start a fire. Well, the dogs went off after something in the forest. Well, whatever it was just roared. And those dogs started squealing, run back, and it chased them all the way back to the tree line, which isn't very far from where these guys are camping. So these guys can see the silhouette of the giant Bigfoot stomping back and forth, just roaring at those two guys and the dogs. And these hunting dogs are pretty seasoned outdoor dogs, and like a golden lab, and I can't remember the other one, but they're rolling at the feet of the owner, just squealing. Never acted that way before. And these guys shot in the forest to scare the Bigfoot away. And the Bigfoot, even though they shot a few times, it begrudgingly retreated slowly, vocalizing at them before it left.
Northeast side of Bear Lake I'm on. Dirt road. It's a snow-covered dirt road today. Back when this incident happened, it was a snowy day or night also. This guy that's ex-military, now he's ex-police officer. He was a police officer in the state of Idaho when this incident happened, but he wasn't even on duty. He was just up in his small two-seater truck, one of those Chevy Love type trucks. He got stuck in the snow. He's digging himself out, this and that, and knew it was going to be quite a job to get dug out. So he finally just gave up and decided to finish digging himself out. In the morning, he proceeded to go to sleep in the front of his vehicle. Well, sometime in the middle of the night, seen a creature walking across the road towards his truck, very slowly, cautious and carefully. A big, like 7-foot hairy creature. Because of the snow conditions, it kind of lights things up at night, and so he got a pretty good look at it coming towards him. Well, he slowly grabbed his 9mm that was in the car with him and just laid it across his chest, ready to use it if he had to. The creature come up near his vehicle, kind of checking out his vehicle, and then it went right to the spot where he had relieved himself a couple of times. This guy had to get out a few times in the night, within about 10 feet of his truck. Well, this huge hairy creature got down on all fours and sniffed where he had peed. Sat there and sniffed it. And then it got up and the creature relieved itself on top of where this guy's urine was. And then it made its way out into the woods. Well, after seeing that, he pretty much stayed up the rest of the night with his 9mm across his chest. And then in the morning, he dug himself out and left. Happened in the late 90s, as the story goes. He was afraid to talk about it until he retired from the police force. It's amazing how many military or police people won't tell of a story while they're, still working. They don't want to risk losing their career over a sighting. I wish it wasn't that way. I found the dirt road he was stuck on. I actually have been up here several times checking the area out where he got stuck. Today I thought I would share that story with you guys that happened in the late 90s. So some sightings back here, and the one that compelled us to come back here the most was where a couple of guys were up here in April. This is where they camped, and I'll walk around their campsite a little bit. But it started raining, whatever, 2 in the morning, and these two guys stopped here with their hunting dogs. They slept under their truck. They threw a tarp under the truck and their sleeping bags and laid right under the truck, kind of right where I'm standing. About an hour after they were laying there, their hunting dogs took off up into the brush after a creature that they could hear out there. Actually, they sicked their dogs on it. They could hear it, and it woke them up, and the dogs were freaking out. And these are hunting dogs. I'm talking bird hunting dogs, but hunting dog's a hunting dog. They sicked their dogs on the creature out there. Well, it started growling and roaring and screaming, and it chased the dogs right back to them. Their 2 dogs that they'd never seen scared before were rolling around at their feet. They shot a bunch of shots up in the forest because it charged right to the tree line, right out of their eyesight, but they could see the shadow of this Bigfoot creature. They drove it off, shooting and stuff, and then their dog sat and whimpered the rest of the night. They made a campfire. They didn't have a campfire at that point in time, and Jenny and I have been to this area quite a bit, and what compels us to come back is the physical evidence that we found that backs up their story. And I'm going to start right inside their campsite. We found a territorial grove of aspens that have snap-offs anywhere from 7 to 10 feet. Some of them are even 12 feet up. It took a big creature to jump up and snap these massive aspens off. I've been watching this location for several seasons now. And this is a kind of a territorial marker, these snap-offs. And this one isn't that impressive. I mean, it's a good 8 feet up there. It's only 2.5 inches in diameter. I mean, you try jumping up on an aspen and snapping it off that far. But, you know, you say it's a coincidence, you know, it's the weather, blah, 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 this and that. But just look, it was ripped off up there. That's ripped and torn and, you know, twisted and stuff. But about an acre of aspens that have been just snapped and shredded. There's an old snap off right in front of me. Jenny, will you come and stand under these snap offs? And Jenny's like 5'3", so that's over twice her height. That's like an 11-foot snap off, and then that's like a 4-inch to 5-inch diameter tree. One right here to the left of me, that one's not quite as high. Another snap off right here. Here's the whole tree that got snapped off right there. That's an old one. It got snapped off and then the tree grew off that way. There's one that just got bent over. You know, it was trying to snap this one off and it just bent it over. Right here's one that it just about got snapped off and just bent over. We counted, the last time we were out here, we counted 24 inside of an acre. I mean, it's just not... That's just can't be a coincidence. Here's two right here in front of me. Will you stand in front and between these two right here, Jenny? Okay, the one right there. And then there's one more. Will you point it or touch the other one, Jenny?
This one?
Yes. So the viewers can see it.
There's one right here.
Yeah, there's another one back here. Boom.
I was watching for
Right back there. By the way, me and Jenny have heard some weird whistles since we've been back in here today. Hopefully the camera will pick those up. Oh, look at these two right here. One of them's from this spring. And look, I mean, something's been showing a display of power through here. It's either like a fighting location. Look at the snap-offs right there. There's 3 of them right next to Jenny.
And there's one back there. Oh, no.
Will you touch each one of them, the bend over and then the one that's been bent over and...
This one.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they might not be able to pick them out. I know viewers can pick out Bigfoots left and right, but these snap-offs scared me. I wonder if there's something up on the hillside right there.
That one right back in there.
Oh yeah, that one too. And this one's been bent over. Look, this one's been torn over. I mean, something comes through here like every spring or every other spring. There's a whole history of them here. Look at those two right there that Jenny's walking under.
And this one still has leaves.
We've been watching this place for a while.
There's 2 more back here.
And oh, there's one back there by the pine tree. And I'm sure we're not going to be able to find them all for you guys. This territorial grove of snap-offs. But now you see why the guys and their dogs got harassed. You know, Bigfoot's like, oh, people are a lot like us. Why don't they understand this is my place? I marked this off. They got to come in and do their special Bigfoot juju to win this place for me, and they didn't. So he come in and ran them off. Tried to anyway. They still finished out the night. They're pretty brave guys. At least they said they did. See that snap off right there? I mean, you guys, I don't know if you guys are seeing what we're seeing, but there's a bunch of destruction where they've been pulled over to the side, snapped off, and these are like twisted, ripped snapped offs.
There's a path that goes clear back up into there where they're all just ripped off.
Yeah, we followed that path before too. But yeah, there's a path that goes that way.
There's a bunch of them.
There's a spring not too far from here, and I think this Territorial Grove is claiming the spring and all the animals that come and going forth from it. And then there's a spring here called Strawberry Springs, and it's called Strawberry Spring for a reason. It's because the strawberries grow here. As a child and stuff, you know, I read books about some of the researchers back then thinking that the Bigfoot, you know, snapped these things off as high as they can reach and as big as they can break. You know, it's like a territorial display of size and strength, you know. And you can tell, you know, these have been ripped off at the top, whether weather related or not. I know weather can cause these snap-offs, but these guys have a protection of a grove to help protect against the wind. And then aspens are the masters at losing their leaves first and gaining them last, so that snow load rarely plays a role in them breaking. But what's weird about this area where these guys had a Bigfoot sighting is it's about an acre of these snap-offs. You know, like 18 of them, and I'll walk through this Territorial grove of aspens. That's what I think it might be if these Bigfoot sightings, you know, really did happen like these individuals claim in this area. I mean, do the Bigfoot mark these with all the snap-offs, showing females and rival males how big and strong I am? You know, that one's about 10 feet up in the air. And we've been keeping an eye on this grove the last 6 years. You know, we investigated these reports like 6 years ago, and you know, and then when we come into this area and in just one small place in exactly where the sighting happened, you know, maybe the Bigfoot claims this area for a place that it wants to sleep safely. I don't know. But for the aggressiveness it showed towards the hunters, yeah, the hunters were sleeping on a tarp underneath their truck. And the Bigfoot chased their dog back to their camp, roaring and stuff at it. The retired police officer's sighting that was about, I don't know, less than a half a mile that direction. His encounter was not an aggressive one, but I'll give you that sighting report later. His was non-aggressive. He also didn't have a dog chasing after it. I think the dog's going out into the forest after it is what set it off, you know. Everything, no matter how gentle an animal is, it's going to defend itself. Here's a couple more snap-offs. You know, when we come back here 6 years ago, there's been a couple of years we come back here and we find these freshly made. And so some of them we know weren't weather related because, you know, we live in these parts. We don't live very far from here, from the Bear Lake area. And so, you know, there hasn't been any bad weather. And you were up here a couple of weeks ago, and then you come up here and there's a new snap off, and we've had mild weather. So, oh, here's a good one. Oh, I walked past one to show you guys another one. You know, that one's a good 12 feet up there. But yeah, I think the big squatches, if they're indeed doing this, they're trying to snap as high as they can get and as thick as they can get. You know, that's like a basketball player of Sasquatch is jumping up there, you know, doing his 12.5-foot slam dunk to grab a hold of that and then yanking it over. And look at the top of this. I mean, this is really slender, not very heavy stuff for as thick as this sapling is. And Jenny's standing underneath the one that I passed up, running over to this one. So you can, Jenny's 5.5 feet tall, and it would take another Jenny standing on Jenny's head to reach the top of that. And there's more snap-offs over that way, but we counted like 18 of them in here the last time we were here, and this is all within, like, I'm saying an acre, but I think this little grove's even smaller than that. It's probably more like a half an acre. And here's two more. One's a really old one, because this one has died. And then later on, perhaps, it came back and made another one. And then right next to that, another one. There's another one back over here. We do a lot of hiking and a lot of searching for Bigfoot. This stuff may or may not be weather related, but the weird thing is just all packed into one little area. I could see coming through and maybe one or two of these in an area like this. And then when you get outside of this half acre, how come you're not seeing this devastation with these saplings other places? Yeah, it's like 10 times the normal weather devastation, and a lot of this stuff you can see has just been twisted and pulled and really manipulated. The weather's going to snap it one way or the other, and that's usually where it's going to sit. The weather isn't going to twist on the branches after or before it breaks. In a lot of these we're seeing twisting. Bear Lake Strawberry Spring, Bigfoot sighting hotspot, and what appears to possibly be a territorial grove of snap-offs.
Okay, so fast forward to just a couple of weeks ago, and these guys are up there hunting, and they're kicking back in a good lookout spot that they had to hike up into. They couldn't get their four-wheeler or anything there. They had to hike up to it, and they got some vocalizations that scared the crap out of them. So they decided to leave the area, and they started hiking down to their four-wheeler. And then that's when they heard a big, loud snap, crushing noise, like something smashing over a tree. And it got their attention, and they turned, and there was a Bigfoot standing there glaring at them. 8.5 feet tall. It's the one that keeps on getting, the aggressive one that keeps getting described in the area. And it just stood there glaring at them. And then from another direction, they heard a snap, which got them to glance away. And as soon as they glanced back, that one was gone. So in my opinion, it's the two, sometimes three that keep getting seen in the area. I think that one made a snapping noise, so this one could make its escape, even though it was being confrontational.
It must have been pretty exciting for you to hear that there had been another report over in the same area where these two other came in.
Yeah, I drilled down with these two, and I was shocked to find that where the last two aggressive sightings happened in the area, they were in the same canyon just a mile or two further in, actually about 2 more miles in, but it's the canyon with the two aggressive sightings right around what I call a territorial grove of aspens, because you just don't have those snap-offs outside of it. And it's just amazing how two different people over or two different sets of people over 10 years have these crazy encounters camping next to this grove. And then these guys also sent me a photo of one of the best of Bigfoot tracks in a trackway. It just stepped in a perfect wash area with a lot of soft sediments, and the ground was moist, and so it accepted the track. I'm searching for Bigfoot in the Bear River Mountain Range near Midnight Mountain. I just found out last night that 2 men out hunting had an aggressive up-close daytime Bigfoot sighting on Midnight Mountain.
It snowed around 8 inches last night, but I'm going to show you around as I look for Bigfoot evidence and go over their sighting report with you. Jacob H. writes R.M.S.O. Found this out hunting 2 weeks ago. Haven't said much about it yet. R.M.S.O. responds, what is the length and width of the impression? Jacob continues, I was hunting and did not have a measuring tape. I wear an 11.5 boot. It was about 3 inches longer than my foot and about twice as wide. I'd guess 15 to 16 inches long and 7 inches wide. Next to a heavy used game trail that was dry, where water runs off and on the side of the trail, causing about a 2-foot wide path of moisture in the dirt, and the rest was like concrete. There were other spots where you could see the tracks, but no real definition or outline. R.M.S.O. responds, that was my guess when you said it was around 3 inches longer than your size and 11.5 boot. Where or what state did you photograph this footprint? Jacob responds, Southeast Idaho, in the Bear River mountain range, near Mink Creek, Idaho. R.M.S.O. responds, okay, was this up Franklin Basin Road or did you find it in the valley near Mink Creek? Jacob continues, there's a canyon just past Mink Creek called Immigration Canyon. There's a road that cuts back and goes east side of the highway. I hunt up there fairly regularly in my place, and my brother and I had a couple of encounters back there, and also other odd things happen. R.M.S.O. responds, okay, I know exactly where you're talking about. There have been some crazy Bigfoot encounters near that spot. Jacob continues, the trail is close to a game trail not marked. We found that track that was pictured pressed into the soft dirt where it was somewhat still wet from the shade, then found imprints without as much detail about every 6 feet in the brush. Jacob continues, I have had 2 where I have actually seen Bigfoot and 3 other occurrences where I seen one and have felt like he was very aggressive. R.M.S.O. responds, both in Idaho? When was the most recent? Jacob continues, 2 weeks ago. R.M.S.O. states, same time you took a photo of that Bigfoot track? Jacob responds, it would have been 3 days prior to the photo that I had my encounter and sighting in a different canyon, 1 canyon over. So we had hiked back into some timber and posted up on top of a knoll where you could see about 180 degrees and started spotting for deer. We had been seeing a few does and were quietly talking. Out of nowhere we heard a whoop type of sound down below us. We were caught off guard by the noise, but didn't think much about it. We got back to spotting for deer, and my brother said to look toward the center of the valley about 500 to 600 yards from us. There was a silvery orb floating, moving back and forth slowly, then would stop for a minute, then would start to move slowly down again until it landed in the trees where we lost sight of it. I made the comment that the whoop that we heard earlier was Bigfoot, more so just teasing my brother about it, not truly believing it. So he, in fun, made a really loud whoop sound that echoed in the valley, and almost instantly below us again, the whoop answered back. Scared the crap out of us, so we got our stuff, packed up as fast as possible, and started to leave. Then we heard a loud crash off to the side of us, a tree falling, crashing to the ground. So we started to push through the brush and got to a clearing. We were heading back to our four-wheeler, and as soon as we stepped into a clearing maybe 20 yards across on the other side, a big figure was standing there in the buckbrush, up to his knees. It just looked at us. It looked irritated that we were there. We both had pistols in our hands just in case it came at us. Then another crash on our left, and we both looked, and when we turned back, it was gone. We both then ran as fast as we could back to the four-wheeler. It was a mile away or so, and haven't been back there since. Hope that this made sense. I'm messaging you from my phone. R.M.S.O. responds, were you guys able to estimate the creature's height or width? Jacob responds, the track was a mile apart from the sighting. I would guess the creature was 8.5 feet tall, maybe a bit more. Buckbrush was up to its knees and close to chest height for us. He was super thick, hard to say. I'm not the best guesser from judging elk. I'd say 475 to 550 pounds. Sounds crazy that I say that. R.M.S.O responds, amazing. Right in the area, some very aggressive encounters have taken place in the past, too. We do look around your sighting report area often because of the history of them in that area. Can't get to each and every one, but we do know that the Bigfoot you saw and possibly his traveling companion start heading south through the Bear River mountain range into the Wasatch Mountain Range this time every year. We track their movements with sighting reports and the tracks they leave behind. In 2020, one of the two was filmed in the sink. We tracked it to Beaver Mountain, and then they were spotted in Franklin Basin. Then 4 weeks later, a guy come face to face with both of them on Monte Cristo. As rare as these creatures are, I do believe they are the same ones that keep getting spotted and encountered there. Trying to figure out what one of the two you saw. What color was he? Was he balding on top of his head or not? Jacob responds, he was very dark in color, but almost looked like he had a red tint to him as well. Not sure what color you'd call it, a dark reddish brown, I'd guess. Hair seemed thin on the arms, but main body seemed thicker. If I had to guess, I'd say Mel had definite chest definition. Head didn't look way thin. Face was bare, but was framed in pretty good. Never saw back of its head. R.M.S.O responds, a person that saw one about same height south of there said it had a pissed off look on its face. Another person that saw one November of last year south of yours also said it had a serious look on its face and never changed face expression the whole time. Jacob responds, that's how this was. R.M.S.O continues, the guy that came face to face with the two of them on Monte Cristo stated both male, both around 8'6", and one was dark brown or black with graying. It was thick around the waist and was balding on the head. The one that it was with was dark brown, close to black, and had a thinner waist, better shape, as if younger. The older one stepped in front of the younger one as if in protection, putting itself between it and the witness. The witness had a sidearm drawn, although did not point it at the creatures. The way the encounter ended, it seems they know what he had in his hand. Jacob responds, this one had a thinner waist for sure. We never pointed at it either. We didn't want to seem aggressive. That makes sense then. The one smashing tree off to the side was probably the big one, older one that is. R.M.S.O responds, yeah, and he is protective and acts like he rather be the one shot or harmed over the younger one. Let me know if you see or hear anything else. Those two that traveled together, one leaves tracks around 14 to 15 inches in length. The other one is a little bigger, leaves 16 to 17 inches in length. The way your sighting ended sounded like you had two of them there, but just saw the one.
It's the Bigfoot they described is what people have been seeing that time of year, every year, the last 3 years in a row. It seems like in late fall, early winter, people are seeing it there. And it's usually during hunting season when I feel like the Bigfoot are kind of getting pushed around a little bit. More people are off trail in the woods, bushwhacking, and I think it causes them to move around and get outside of their game and get spotted a little bit more often. I do believe that these last two guys that saw this Bigfoot, though, it made that noise and confronted them on purpose, just, letting them know, hey, this is my canyon. And it worked. They left the area and they started started hunting the next canyon over. So its little intimidation thing got them to leave and not want to come back. And then they got a hold of me and it's like, hey, this happened to us. And I usually take these Bigfoot sightings with a grain of salt, but these guys had the footprint evidence, and it happened in a place where there's other Bigfoot sightings.
So this is actually, if I remember right, I was on the phone talking to you when you were driving up there.
Yes, you were. And
yeah, you were excited.
You were
excited.
I didn't realize it until I got home, but I have an overhead speaker phone in my truck when I'm driving around. So you were like talking into the cab of the truck. Well, I had my dash cam rolling. So all that's recorded. I was like, I'm going to ask Duke permission to scrub through this and scrub out all the F words and stuff. And maybe I can put out a video of us having a discussion while I was on a Bigfoot expedition.
Oh yeah,
I,
I get to be on one of your road drive
round table
discussion
drives.
videos. Hell yeah, man, count me in.
Sounds like you're in the seat next to me, but you were on the speakerphone. I was driving in some crappy snow sleet stuff too. I mean,
Oh
but
man, I love it when stuff like that happens. So I got a friend up in Alaska. He's not really a Bigfooter, and he's up there moose hunting. And he calls me from his hunting shack. He says, "We finally got a signal. We're here at the hunting shack. We can kind of get a signal here. I figured I'd let you know. I found a bunch of Bigfoot tracks today." And I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, like a lot." And I go, how long is your tag for your moose hunt good for? Do you have enough time to like film some of it? And he's like, yeah, we were actually thinking about that. The guy that's with me is into Bigfoot too. So we're going to take tomorrow off and just go over and film all these tracks we found. Dude, they after a while, they just got bored and quit doing it because there were so many tracks and trackways. It was absolutely ridiculous. And you
I
probably
think
seen
I saw their video.
the second video he turned out about a year later where it was land of the midnight sun and it was like almost midnight and they were filming him in the water there. That was near the same area, but a year later.
That's the one I saw.
Yeah, and there were some spectacular tracks in that one too. And both of them, there was an interesting anomaly where there were big fresh bear prints going through the area where the Sasquatch are leaving all the tracks, and both times what appeared to be the tracks of an alpha male started following the bear. So apparently they weren't down with the bear being in the area. They were either scooting them out or they were getting a free meal off them, one or the other.
They're in an area where the bears are huge. The
Yeah.
British Columbia has some
Well,
of the
this is
biggest bears.
Alaska we're talking about. The bears are
Ah.
gigantic up there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so are the Sasquatch.
Yeah, the further north you get, for some reason, the mammals get bigger and more aggressive.
There's an actual natural law for that. I can't think of what the name of it is. Matt Squatch cites it all the time. But yeah, the animals actually get bigger as you go further north because of conservation of heat. Have more mass, keeps you warmer, less likely to freeze solid during really cold snaps in the winter. So, and by necessity, if Bigfoot has to compete with these animals or be in an area where they're around, they have to be large enough to do it. So that tends to eliminate the little scrubs. They're all living down in, Louisiana, where you can be 8 feet and you're the biggest thing around. But yeah, the other thing we were talking about is interesting patterns that are not only just Bigfoot related, but human related. And one thing that I've noticed over the years is a lot of stories start with, well, it was late at night and I went out on the porch to have a cigarette. Well, the cigarettes aren't actually causing the sighting. There's no such thing as a perfect paranormal cigarette that'll get you a sighting every time you go out at night to have one. But what's going on here is that because now you can't smoke indoors, people have to go outside to smoke a cigarette. So guess what's happening? They're outside at night where they wouldn't usually be, and they're seeing things. And another example of this is what happened with you and Jenny last year that you talked about on the show last year, and you just brought it up again with the guy taking a whiz and the Bigfoot coming over and taking a whiz on it like, no,
Right.
This is my scent marker. I hear this a lot where people are like, their eyeballs are floating, they got to pull off to the side of the road somewhere and relieve themselves, and there's some little back road, and they pull up there, and the next thing you know, they've got a sighting happening. And last year you brought that up, that had happened to you and Jenny, and you told the whole story, which was spectacular. Thank you. But the cool thing was, is during the course of the year this year, you were back in the same area, so you guys actually went back there and did a reenactment video of it.
Yes, I wanted people to see from my eyes where I was, how close it was in my rear view mirror. So I got my car parked exactly the way it was before, and I pointed the camera up in the rear view mirror so you could see the log that was on an embankment behind my truck, and the Bigfoot was standing right behind that. And I think about the situation and I'm like, 35, 45 feet away. And then I get there and I'm like, it was only 30 feet behind me. I know things in the mirror look further away than they are in reality, but that Bigfoot was hovering right over us, and it was creepy. The creep factor come over me right away because my first instinct was humanoid person, and we just got in the vehicle after going to the bathroom. And so, and it was on the side of the vehicle Jenny was on, so it was kind of creeping me out. I'm like, it was watching her pee, you know? And
Dang pervert.
yep. And I don't know what made it bolt, but I only saw it for a couple of seconds in my rear view mirror, and I'm staring at it, and the first thing that come out of my mouth was, "There's a guy standing behind us, Jenny." And she could tell I was creeped out. And then I dived for the camera. And before I even dove for the camera, that's when it split. So I don't know if this thing, you know, realized I saw it through the rearview mirror. Maybe it saw my eyeballs staring at it. I don't know, but it bolted. And then that's what I grabbed the camera and I ran after it. And then realized how stupid that was, because I didn't grab any protection. I mean, we had protection in the vehicle. I just didn't go for that. I went for the camera and ran after it. And that's when Jenny come running up and she's like, "You have no protection." I'm like, "Yep, let's get it and we'll track it."
I've heard this come up a few times before, Kelly. It seems to be standard operating procedure for R.M.S.O. Part 1, Kelly sees Bigfoot. Part 2, Kelly grabs camera, runs toward it. Part 3, Jenny goes, "You don't have a gun with you." Part 4, Jenny grabs a gun or bear spray and runs behind Kelly, trying to catch up to him as he's running toward the Bigfoot with his camera.
Well, she's there's fight or flight, and I'm just too stupid to have either. I just grab the camera and go after it. But Jenny has flight. We had a bear come up within like 10 feet behind us one evening. We were trekking around our camp during a full moon, and we had our 2 kids. I mean, they're adults and moved on, but they were like 10 and 12 years old at the time, Hunter and Kelsey. And they were hiking around with us, and we get in this wash, and me and Jenny's like, "Oh my gosh, bear tracks. Wow, those look fresh. Wow, these look fresh. Oh my gosh, look, it pooped right here. Oh wow, fresh." And then we do this big circle, and I can see our encampment coming up. It's just in view, and I hear a scraping noise behind us, and I flip around, and there's this large male black bear following us. So I don't know how long he's been following us. It's if he was standing there watching us like, "Oh, fresh tracks, fresh poop," you know, but it's right behind us. Well, Jenny had a firearm on her. I saw her put her holster on and all that. And so when I saw the bear, the kids, I was actually in the lead when I heard it. So I turn around and I see it behind everybody. And it went me, Jenny, then the 2 kids. Well, I charged the bear. I wasn't going to run up to it, but I just wanted to put me between it and the kids. And I'm screaming at it. And, you know, my nuts are this big only because I know Jenny's got a 45 on her.
Yeah.
And so I get between it and the kids, and I'm yelling at it. And I look out of the corner of my eye expecting to see Jenny drawing her firearm, and she's running back to camp. The only person with the firearm. I'm like, and I scream at her. I'm like, "Jenny, you have the gun." And she's like, "Whoop, whoop, whoop," and she's got it drawn. But in that split 2 seconds, the bear decided it didn't want anything to do with us, and it split. But now I'm like, oh, if shit goes down, it's just going to be me because Jenny's going away.
Now you know how reliable your backup is.
So yeah, she'll realize down the road that she's got a firearm, and she'll come back and help me. But
If you're still alive at that point.
but at least she has a reflexive action, and just instead of standing there frozen with fear, she runs away and I run towards. But you know, if our kids hadn't have been with us, I wouldn't have charged it like that. I would have I just would have stayed right where I was at and stood my ground. But yeah, I charged it and got between them and the kids. They're adults now and can take care of themselves, so I probably won't do it now.
No, we had one of those scares when I was camping with the Boggy Creek monster, Keith Crabtree, and It was about an hour into dark, and we got no campfire because there's a burning ban on. So it's not only cold, but it's dark. And we got just enough sky clear with a little bit of stars that you can kind of see something. And there's something down by the river, and it's coming toward camp, and he sees eyes. And he goes, "There's a bear down there." Oh, I'm kind of doubting that, but just in case he actually successfully identified what it is that he's looking at, I go, "Get a flashlight on it." And while he's putting the flashlight on it, I'm running between him and the campfire that hasn't got anything going in it to get over to my tent where I got a broadsword because that's the only weapon we've got with us. So I'm about to fight a friggin' bear with a broadsword, so it can't get to Keith because it's going to take Keith about a minute and a half to hobble over to his truck and get in it while I'm holding the bear off with my broadsword. So by the time I get the broadsword and I turn around, he goes, "Oh, false alert, it's just a deer." And I'm like, "Can't you tell the difference between a deer and a bear?" Well, all he could see was just eyes, and they were big, and so he figured it was a bear. He doesn't realize how big deer are up here. And like, no, the bear's eyes would be like 4 feet off the ground at least, Keith. Come on now. Got me all scared over nothing. It's just a stupid deer up here to try and eat our cookies. Which is what that same deer was doing the following night. Was in camp eating our cookies. I thought it was raccoons or something rummaging through all the trash and bags and stuff we had in camp. Because I could hear it going through every single bag. And I'm like, this cannot be a Bigfoot. No Bigfoot is this inept and clumsy and loud. And we're way the hell too high up for it to be a raccoon. What the hell is doing this? And I finally get out of the tent, and there's this deer, and it's like sticking its nose into every bag, looking for anything edible. It figured out how to open up the container of cookies in the one bag, and it's busy eating all the cookies. And I'm like, "Get the hell out of camp, you bastard." And then I realized, well, the Sasquatch are watching us too. And I go, "You're eating the Sasquatch's cookies. We're going to leave those for them tomorrow. And you're eating all their cookies. You guys seeing this? Eat this damn deer so he doesn't get your cookies next time." But the deer didn't listen. I bet he won't be back here next year. But yeah, as far as the weird paranormal stuff accompanying the Bigfoot stuff, that comes up a lot. You get places where they're just traveling through or something like that. You never seem to get any of that. And the one area, well, actually, the both areas, my best areas, are really, really active. But we've never gotten an orb or anything like that in those areas. So, I think there could be some kind of a connection between the orbs and the Bigfoot. Some people absolutely think there are. But from the observation I've seen, there doesn't seem to be much of one because we've seen plenty of Bigfoot and got them on video, but we haven't seen any orbs or anything. We've seen all kinds of other weird stuff, but, no orbs or anything like that. Robin tells me in clip 405, which I'm still doing breakdowns of, that I actually caught a portal either in the process of opening or closing, because you can see the concentric circles in the air and a little ball of light in the center of it. And that's where all these other cryptids are hanging around and stuff. But out of all the years I've been out there doing it, that's the first thing I've ever caught on camera that I can point to and go, that's probably paranormal. And you've gotten orbs a couple times already. I've never gotten one.
Yeah, and it's not something that's I don't know. I've never considered Bigfoot to be paranormal, although because I have to keep an open mind because nobody has a body that we know of. I mean, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. There may be bodies, but I have to keep an open mind why people aren't able to catch up and capture one of these. And so I feel like it's my duty to show what's on those cameras, even though I don't think it's related. I'm not going to keep it from the public. It's like, hey, this is what was on our cameras. You make your own decision. And we also find ourselves in the Uinta Basin and around Skinwalker territory. And Skinwalker Ranch is famous, and Indian Canyon near Skinwalker Ranch, those are famous for orbs of energy, fire, lightning balls, all that. And so it's kind of amazing that I've captured some of that on camera in those areas. And I kind of have to I feel a responsibility to keep up on the skinwalker phenomenon, the Skinwalker Ranch, the Blind Frog Ranch phenomenon, since I'm in those areas, and in case I run across something that these areas are known for, at least I have a little bit of knowledge on how to deal with it. And I hike around with my medicine bag that my son gave me that's supposed to protect against skinwalkers and evil spirits and all that. I mean, I need all the protection I get. As a matter of fact, there was a Blackfeet Indian tribe in Montana that invited us out, and they saw some of our videos where we go into skinwalker territory, and they wanted to do some protection. I don't know what you would call it, but they were gonna do some stuff to give us some protections and stuff, and we couldn't make it out there, and they asked us if they could do it in our absent, and I'm like, heck yes, I'll take all the protection I want. I can get. I want to run into Bigfoot. I want to get a photograph. I want to get a good video of Bigfoot, but I don't want to become his pet, and I definitely don't ever want to run into a skinwalker if those things are real.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that assessment of that situation. Those are negative, nasty things, and that's one thing a lot of the natives are very careful about what they tell you about certain cryptids. They may know all about them, but they're not necessarily going to tell you about it. And part of the reluctance is that sometimes they won't even tell you the actual name of the cryptid. They've got a slang name for it, and that's all they'll use, because they believe if they use the actual name of the thing, it draws its attention to them, and then they got to worry about it showing up. And caveman's talked about that. There's like certain seasons they can talk obliquely about certain cryptids, and other times of the year you can't even talk about them, even if you use a slang term for them. Like, as far as I know, and they may actually have a name for it, there's no actual Navajo name for Bigfoot. All I've ever heard are slang terms for it, including from caveman, Hostin Zistloi, which just means big hairy man or big man in the mountains. That's it.
Yeah, every tribe has their names, and some of them have several different names.
Yeah. Well, I've got a list of just about all of the actual tribal names for them across the continent, but there's some tribes that are so sneaky about it, like I'm saying, like the Navajo, a good example. If they do actually have a name for it, they've never told the public. They just use slang terms.
Well, I'll tell you what, I really enjoy when First Nations, Native Americans, and some of these guys in these tribes, they actually like to be called Indians, they tell me. But whatever they go by, I really love hearing about action in their areas. And a lot of these natives and stuff, they keep this stuff to their chest, and they really got to trust you or like you to talk about their experiences, sightings, to send you photos or videos. And it's exciting. I know in Northern Ontario, there's some remote flying communities that have been sending me their footprints, their photographs, talking about their encounters and stuff. And I've just
we both reached out to Blaine Tyler that's up there, and he's like,
yeah,
it's too far to go to get over there. I got them all over the place by where I'm at. There's not even a road to get in there. You'd have to fly in.
Well, Ontario's the size of Texas, man. That's a big place. I mean, when I talk about all these sightings coming out of Ontario, Canada, that really doesn't narrow it down. That's a huge place.
Yeah, I know. Speaking of Blaine, before I forget about it, you're talking about finding things in pictures and whatnot. And he had this one video he was filming in this gravel pit that hadn't been in use for about a year or two. And there's all kinds of little scrub brush growing up in it and stuff. And he kept finding tracks there. So since nobody really was harassing him for trespassing, although technically he was, because the previous owner died and the kids didn't take custody of the place yet, he was going in there and finding all these tracks and stuff. And in one of his videos, he's got this long pan across the gravel pit, and down at the far end of it, there's this huge male Sasquatch standing there watching him. And he didn't notice it at the time. But when he's looking at the video afterwards, he's like, oh my God, that's a huge one down there. Well, then he gets up his courage and goes back there, because he's by himself and not allowed to carry a gun. And he goes and walks up to the same area, and he's looking at it, and he's like, where was this thing standing? And he realizes it was twice as far away and twice as big as what he thought it was. And he walks way down to the end of the gravel pit because he can see on the original video this tree it was standing next to. So he goes and finds that tree. And then he measures up to the fork in the tree that the top of its head was up pretty much right up to. That's 17 feet. And this thing was built like the Hulk. And after that, he didn't want to go back there again.
Yep, when it can manhandle you between its finger and thumb, it's so big.
Yeah.
You
Well, and what freaked him out
automatically
even
give
more,
it that respect, and you want to give it that distance.
I did a show with him where we took a closer look at that mega squatch, not only his video, but also other reports of really outsized Sasquatch that have come out of Canada and northern areas. And while I was doing the breakdown of his video for it, I'm looking at his video, and of course, you know, I've got it up on the screen, and I'm editing it and everything, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, there's another Bigfoot in this video, Blaine. He's about 60 feet away from you. He's got gray hair, and he's about 9 feet tall. And when you bring the camera up from the ground where the tracks were that you're filming, you bring it up, and then you turn to your left, and you catch the one down at the end of the gravel pit. There's one about 60 feet away from you standing there watching you that you also accidentally caught on the video and never noticed. And I gave him some screen captures of that, and he's like, whoa, yeah, that's one for sure. And he was really close. Oh, my God. You're just a little short 9-footer. You know? So, yeah, that's eye-opening. I love it when people do that with my videos, too, because I'll put out something, and I have no idea there's anything in it. And somebody will look at it and go, Duke, timestamp, blah, 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 upper corner. And I'll go back and look at it and go, oh, my God, how did I miss that? Thank you so much, oh, amazing and observant fan who actually pays attention.
Well, I'll see stuff during editing, and I'll be like, okay, it's really hard to see. It's over here. Or sometimes it's easy to see, and I'll save it. I will be like, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it until viewers do. And once they start making a big deal out of it, maybe I'll do a breakdown of it if it's worth it, you know.
Yeah.
But it's really neat, and there's a lot of people out there that will notice things that I don't see in editing. And some of these Bigfoot videos, especially the hiking ones, you know, I go through the footage like 5, sometimes 8 times before it's actually put together to my satisfaction, and put it out there. And so I'm shocked when these people will see something that I didn't see after going through it 8 times. Of course, after a couple of times, I'm like a glazed over zombie eyes and stuff. And, you know, by that point, I'm just listening and making sure the audio is okay. And so, yeah, it's pretty neat. Some of these people that can find things in your videos that you missed during editing.
I found things in my video due to people interrupting me while I was editing them twice now. I'm right in the middle of a piece of video. They call me. I just pause it. I'm talking to them. And while I'm talking to them, I'm looking at that paused frame because that's what's on the screen. And I'm like, oh, my God, there's one right there. If I hadn't been forced by like them fortuitously calling me at the right moment to stare at the screen for the last 20 minutes, I would have never noticed because they're that damn good at hiding. And another one, and I wish I could remember whose name it is. I'll give them due credit when I actually put out the breakdown video because I'm going to do one on cloaking and blending that have been caught on video and give everybody examples. But apparently I caught one 2 springs ago. And the video ended up going out and several thousand views on it. And then it became part of a compilation video that I did for a Bigfoot conference, where instead of just sitting there and wasting everybody's time talking, blah, 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 I decided to just show them an hour's worth of Bigfoot captures that we got. And so nobody there noticed anything. Then I put out that actual video. Here's the conference video. And somebody, now, again, keep in mind, this has been seen several times now. And it's been over a year since it came out. Somebody looks at it and goes, Duke, at timestamp, there's one right here and it moves. And I'm like, really? So I go and I look at it. And sure enough, I'm filming the hillside and you can't see him at all. he's just sitting there right in plain sight, and you can't see him until he moves.
Uh-huh.
Then you can see him perfectly, and you're like, how the hell can I not see this thing until it moves? And then when he stops moving, blends right back in again. Can't see him anymore. Just like watching the predator move or something. And the only reason I got that shot is because I was filming over Mike's head. You can see the top of his baseball cap at the bottom of the frame on the video. And the subject on the far side of him probably thought I was filming Mike, but I wasn't. I was filming over his head. So after a few seconds, he just decides, oh, it's safe to move, and he shifts position. Nope, we got you. But again, I never noticed it. Spectacular, sharp-eyed fans. Amazing. Keep up the great work, you guys. Me and Kelly both love it when you do this stuff.
Yeah, I have 2 different videos where I've captured the creature, and it does not move a muscle. The only thing that moves is its mouth, face, eyes, maybe tilt the head a little bit. But that's part of being a master of camouflage, is being able to hold still and trust your camouflage, that if you don't move, they're not going to see it. And a lot of times when you stare at something for a while and it doesn't move and blends in really well, you're like, oh, I'm just seeing things. But the camera don't blink, and so
Mm-mm.
it catches the Bigfoot blinking, it catches the Bigfoot changing its mouth position. And so yeah, I've got one in Lost Creek, Utah, where it's just this giant squatch um, across the wash from us, staring at us. And it was the guy saw, and his girlfriend saw the Bigfoot the night before. We're there the next day investigating the sighting, and we captured this thing watching us doing our investigation. And the only thing it would move is its face and eyes. And we didn't really know we got the capture until we got home and saw it on a big screen. And so we was right back there another week later trying to figure out where it was standing and replicate the conditions. We even showed up the same time of day so we'd have the same type of lighting, and we couldn't find anything where it was standing the next time.
We're up here looking for evidence of a Bigfoot sighting that just happened recently this week.
A couple days ago.
I've already thrown the helicopter up here once.
I don't know if I did a 360 up here. I probably should have. Pan out. Let him check out that.
Just a second, I'm zooming in on a dark spot that I see across the way. That's the dark spot that I see. It's worth zooming in on. Kind of stands out from the shadows.
Yeah.
See how it is?
Yep.
See the, if you get closer, you can see the fingers.
hard time seeing that.
You know what? When they climb something steep like this, they put their hands down sometimes. I don't care if people are having a hard time seeing it. I'm gonna film it. I ain't walking past the friggin' handprint. Check that out.
It's the skinny bush.
We're only about 20 yards from where he saw the creature standing before it took several steps and walked up the hill and disappeared on him. But Derek found another footprint, and I'm gonna put my 13-inch boot next to it, and you can see the hill comes around down here, and then the toes are clear up here. This is about the fourth footprint that's definitive enough to say it's a footprint, and now that we're getting a pattern, they're all 17 inches. I mean, we do have an individual up here, and it took another step. Up here. It was probably being very cautious to try and not be sighted by him when he was walking up on it.
This pine tree right here, see the bigger bush, and then you got like the juniper or whatever that's behind it?
That's where he's seen it.
That's where it happened.
I bet you it come around this tree. I'm going to follow around where the footprints are heading. I bet you it curved around this tree. I can see a trail line, an animal trail line.
Hey, check this out. That is a weird print.
I can also see toes up here. Like it stepped right here. That's a good sized footprint if that's the whole footprint, and it really has crushed the sagebrush.
Well, like it did with this grass. This grass actually is all matted down, all broken off and matted down right where that other print you guys just...
I think he came from here. 'Cause here's another one. Right here.
He walked this line right here.
This is another footprint.
He's even smashed down some of this milkweed.
And then the other one was in the redwoods of California. I zoomed in on a Bigfoot shape that was probably 300-400 yards away in the trees. I'm like, that looks like a Bigfoot, and I zoomed in and held the camera, and I'm looking through this tiny viewfinder and these viewfinders, man, if you go out and use these cameras, there's a lot of glare and stuff. So you like have to have some type of skill just to get it in the frame of the camera and hold the camera still from that far away and zoom in. And I got home and started checking it out, and I'm like, yep, it's changing facial expressions. It's even moving its head a little bit like this and that as it's changing facial expressions. But at the time it held so still that I'm like, oh, it's just got to be an illusion of lights. So far away. But yeah, I zoom in on that camera and then I get it on a big screen, and yeah, the proof's in the pudding. So that's twice that I've captured a Bigfoot on camera that the only thing you can see really moving is its head a little bit and its face.
So make sure that you're kind to everyone. Safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Don't be mean to people if you don't have to be. Don't flip off the mountain giant. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the puck, would you? And for God's sake, whatever you do, do not hug the Wookiee.